Fitzpatrick takes the snap, drops back, lobs it back right corner. Decker! He's got it! Touchdown! Eric Decker scores! And the Jets have won it in overtime!
This is the Jet Take with Ben Blessington and Kyle Fahey.
Welcome back to another episode of the Jet Take. I'm Ben Blessington, your host for tonight, as well as my co-host, Mr. Money, Kyle Fahey. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Are you the host just for tonight?
Yes, I'm just filling in for I guess just right now. We'll see how Mr. Fahey likes me. We'll see if he's going to cut me. We're heading into off season.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Kyle?
Another numerous one-night stand for me.
Okay, all right. Kyle's off and running out of the gates. Yes, no, I'm your.
Actually, I think I'm on and running.
Okay, all right. Jesus, Kyle, we talked about this beforehand. Anyways, we have a very fun episode tonight. As you can see, Kyle's in a great mood. Apparently, we're just getting closer and closer to training camp and actual New York Jets football. It's been a long time since I guess the Jets getting blown out in New England last year, but it's been a while, and we're getting into training camp, which means we're heading into preseason. A lot more topics and content to talk about, so we're very excited about that. We have a special guest on the line that we'll get to in just a few minutes here. You can follow us on Twitter at The Jet Take. You can also find us on Turn on the Jets. There's a bunch of great Turn on the Jets digital podcasts, so make sure to check out theirs, not just ours, and just enhance your knowledge of the game. I believe Joe Blewett's podcast, his TOJ Film Room podcast, has dropped this week, so make sure to go check that out. But just a lot of great content over there at turnonthejets.com. And yes, as I said, you can follow us at The Jet Take on Twitter, and if you want to listen to our podcast, you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, so iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, we are there. Kyle, how was your 4th of July?
I made out better than Jason Pierre-Paul.
All right, dated for your reference right there, but, you know, Kyle, I like it. Kyle is 3 for 3 on these jokes tonight. None of them hit, but...
It's been longer since that happened than Jason Pierre-Paul's fingers.
What is that even? Kyle, 0 for 4 tonight. What's on? We took a week off last week for 4th of July, and I think you might have lost
that's
stride.
That's 3 for 4.
No. Okay. Anyways, we're going to get
750. All right, I'm making the All-Star game for sure.
No, you're not. All right, we're going to get to our guest tonight. This is Jim Cobern, who's an analytics expert. He helped me out actually earlier the year when I was a senior in high school. I had to do a senior project. I did it on analytics. And yeah, Kyle, it's you this year.
Where are you going to college, Ben? Just in case.
Syracuse.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Please don't come and stalk me. Yeah,
no,
and yeah, okay, I'm not telling you the dorm number, obviously. But yeah, so he helped me out earlier in the year. I had to do a research project on analytics, and so that's what Jim Cobern is known for. I guess he was referenced actually by a good friend of the show, Scott Mason, and he told me about him. And Jim was very helpful, broke down a lot of analytics, and I knew I wanted to have him on the show at some point to break down the Jets offseason and talk a little bit about analytics and football and analytics on the Jets. I'm sure his impression of the show is so great as he's listened to 2 minutes of Kyle making inappropriate jokes. But without further ado, we'll bring on Jim Cobern. So, Jim, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well. The jokes are I'll give them a 2 out of 4.
Yeah, I'm going 2 out of 4.
Okay. That's still 500.
You're like Kobe Bryant in his last game, I guess, except you're not putting 60 points up. But you're putting up a lot of shots, Kyle. I admire the effort. Jim, I mean, I can't say that this is different. He does this a lot. Sometimes, some nights he's on, some nights he's making me laugh. Other nights like tonight, just kind of,
I'm Kobe wearing number 24, not number 8.
All right. Well, Jim, for our listeners who don't really know, what is it exactly that you do, and, in the realm of analytics, and just can you kind of explain to our listeners kind of what you do on your website and just kind of break down your role on Twitter and with your website and whatnot?
Sure. Well, all I really do is you take a bunch of numbers, which could be anything, really. It could be statistics. It could be how fast the player ran, such as the 40-yard dash, vertical jump, the broad jump, those other sort of drills in the combine, the underwear Olympics, as people like to call it. It could be taking injury data, how often a player ends up on IR, questionable, probable, all that sort of stuff. And you just take all that information, you put it into a Excel sheet, and usually it's a lot of information. Usually it's like thousands of data points. And then you just try to see if there's any trends or any sort of correlations to success in any number of variables. So that's what a lot of the work that I do is. The YouTube channel Common Man Football, I posted tons of videos in terms of player profiles and week-to-week NFL data work. On Twitter, I tweet. I haven't tweeted as often because it's the off season, but I do tweet on Twitter a lot about different sort of data and analytical sort of information. But essentially, it's all I really do is I put a bunch of data points into a computer and try to see if those variables matter or don't matter. And the ones that matter, those are the ones that I usually throw into people's faces and hopefully get some sort of reaction.
Yeah, Jim, you mentioned kind of putting points in. Sorry to cut you off there at the end, but you mentioned putting points in and kind of like seeing trends that matter and whatnot, and it almost seems like you kind of downplayed it, but it is a growing trend in the NFL. That is analytics, and I know obviously the common example is Moneyball and baseball or whatnot, but what do you think about the growing trend in analytics? I mean, even for us, not just saying the entire NFL, the Jets have officially put on 2 analytics experts on their staff. So it's clearly something that the NFL is starting to value more and more, getting a discrete, just kind of black and white answer on a player, specifically around, obviously, the draft season is a big time for analytics experts like yourself. But what do you just think about the overall growing trend of what you're doing?
Well, I think the trend of it is definitely going up. One analogy that I kind of keep going back to, and I forgot what the book it was in, but it was talking about how in Japan they hired these individuals to look at chickens and determine what sex they were, whether they were a male chicken or a female chicken, because obviously the male chickens become roosters and they're, kind of worthless to a certain extent. I mean, there's definitely some people who want roosters, but what you're really trying to get are the chickens that lay hens. And there they would basically teach these guys to look at the chickens as they were going down like a conveyor belt and pick out the male from the female chickens. That's where a lot of NFL teams are right now. Scouts are taught to look at traits and different sort of things with their eyes to pick the hens from the roosters, essentially, the good players from the bad players. But what analytics does is instead of doing all that, we do the other stuff. We weigh the chickens. We take a blood test on the chickens. Like we are basically doing, everything that we're not looking at the chickens per se. We're not doing a sort of, qualitative sort of assessment of a player. We're looking at the quantitative sort of information. And I think when you start looking at it that way, you don't value one over the other, because I do understand there's always going to be some big debate about, scouting with your eyes is always going to be more than scouting with the computer or data. But in my opinion, do both. I do believe the analytics is definitely a trend that's going up. It's just once I think teams actually commit to using data and actually get results from the data, will they finally start to kind of embrace it more and more. There's always going to be that qualitative side when it comes to football analytic, data in general, or football evaluation, I should say. But the quantitative side of things, in many ways, enhances the qualitative side. In many ways, they complement each other so well that I just think if you're an NFL team that's not doing analytics, then you're kind of dumb. And for the most part, every team does analytics. It's just a matter of how well they do analytics, which is what differentiates those teams.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned, why not just do both? And I think that was kind of one of the things that we saw. Albert Breer released an article kind of just detailing the Jets' path to Sam Darnold, and I didn't actually mean for this to be a plug. You can actually check out Scott Mason's podcast kind of breaking down that article at Play Like a Jet. But he kind of broke down Micah Cagman's process of going through these rookie quarterbacks. And, yeah, he definitely talked about the Jets were just looking at everything. So they weren't just focusing on analytics and just making their mind up based off that. But they weren't ignoring it at all. They just did everything. Why not take the most amount of data you can about these guys? But speaking about those rookie quarterbacks, obviously this was one of the best classes, I guess, we've had in a while. And, obviously it's the decision that defines Mike McCagnon, our GM's era, or, as the general manager of the Jets, this decision of taking Sam Darnold. But putting Sam Darnold aside for a second, what were your thoughts on this quarterback class as a whole, from Baker Mayfield to Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and Lamar Jackson? Just kind of your thoughts from an analytical perspective about these 5 quarterbacks.
Well, I felt like it was a very strong class. There was two quarterbacks in particular that had all-pro potential based on all the numbers. I mean, the vast majority of all-pro quarterbacks typically hit a certain number, if you will, and in this class we had 2, which is pretty strong. We also had multiple quarterbacks that also hit Pro Bowl levels of production. And I think in general, when you look at the class, you look at guys like, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, even Mason Rudolph to a certain extent, even though he's gotten a lot of flack and stuff like that. And it remains to be seen, but even a guy like Mason Rudolph tested pretty well data-wise. So it was a fairly strong class. There definitely were quarterbacks that were a little bit more conservative, if you will, that just kind of looked a little bit better in the data. Mayfield was one of those guys just because of how much experience he had and how much dominance he had at the college level, whereas Darnold was just because he was younger, but he also had a very fantastic, sophomore season at USC. But for the most part, it was a fairly strong class just from a data perspective. When you have two guys that score pretty well in terms of all-pro potential and a bunch of guys that have Pro Bowl potential, you look at a class that's looking pretty good to hopefully those guys pan out to be that, or at least, starters at the very least when it comes to those guys.
Hey, Jim, it's Kyle here. I'm finally getting a question in. I know Ben asked you specifically about the rookie quarterbacks, but I really only care about one guy, around these parts, and that's Sam Darnold. When you were looking at him, obviously a lot of people had him as the consensus number one. That was for neither of us. But overall, what were the negatives and positives from Sam Darnold when you were watching him?
In terms of watching him, you mean on film or you mean data-wise?
Wise, for now.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was...
Data-wise.
Oh, data-wise.
Yeah.
Data-wise, he didn't really have very many negatives at all. His high school production pretty much hit the level you're looking for. And I know people say, high school production, that's crazy. But every single multiple Pro Bowl quarterback since 2007 had at least an 84 or higher high school production score. And Darnold hit that sort of area. On top of that, he pretty much had the highest single-season FBS production score, which takes into account touchdown to interception ratio, completion percentage, and strength of schedule, the 97.07 overall score. Even Baker Mayfield, he never had a 97.07 score. So in ways, Darnold's sophomore season, not his last season, of course, but his sophomore season was pretty much the best single statistical season out of the entire class. On top of that, scored pretty well in terms of his career data, where he had a 89.54 out of 100, which pretty much hit the All-Pro career threshold and All-Pro averages. And the only real question mark with him is just that he's a very, very young player. He's going to be 21 years old this year, and since the 1958 NFL season, there's only been one quarterback to have an above-average QBR at the age of 21 and played at least 12 games. Which is Fran Tarkenton in 1961. So most of the time quarterbacks that are that young, so, basically if Sam Darnold plays significant time this year, he most likely is not going to have the best QBR ever, or at least best statistical season ever. But hopefully by year two, that's when, he can kind of get his legs under him, so to speak. So the only real question mark with Darnold is just because of how young he is. Usually quarterbacks that are that young don't really have the best year when they enter the NFL.
You're talking about year one, and I think what a lot of fans, want to know or clamoring to know or hoping for is Darnold going to start week one, seeing as we have veterans like Josh McCown and possibly even Teddy Bridgewater, depending on, how his trade value goes throughout training camp on the roster ahead of him. Do you think Sam Darnold's going to start week one?
Well, from a perspective of looking at the quarterbacks like Teddy Bridgewater and of course Josh McCown, who brings that veteran presence. Darnold, from a talent perspective, should be the starter, but from a is he ready, if you will, from just from a playbook perspective, or just I don't want to say mentally ready, but like just from that perspective, I would say that I would more likely see a guy like Josh McCown or Teddy Bridgewater start week one versus Darnold. But again, talent-wise, Darnold is the guy. If Darnold ends up being the starter, it wouldn't be that surprising. I just would say that you would have to – there's going to be some take some lumps type of thing. It's going to be very similar to like when Matthew Stafford had his first Matthew Stafford's rookie season, for example. It's not going to be the prettiest season ever, but you just kind of go with it, I guess, because he's a franchise guy.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of just his amazing college analytics. And I just want to clarify, because you said it, and then we kind of transitioned to Kyle, and I just want to go back just to make sure. You said there were 2 All-Pro quarterbacks in this class, and then some of the Pro Bowl level. Can you just kind of say, so who out of the 5 that I gave you were the All-Pro, who were the Pro Bowl, and then how were the other guys faring as far as their analytics go?
Sure. The 2 All-Pro potential quarterbacks, one was Sam Darnold. Pretty much fits that description based on his career data and his best single season data. Baker Mayfield is the other one, just because of his average career data, and also just it's pretty much just that information really. It's just his career data and his other sort of information. The other Pro Bowl quarterback, Josh Rosen, is the one that has pretty much hit above the Pro Bowl averages and had a pretty good single season score. And the other one is Mason Rudolph, who tested very similar to Josh Rosen as well. Similar averages at the position in terms of his average career FBS score, and also similar in terms of his best single-season score for Mason Rudolph. Those are the only sort of quarterbacks that had Pro Bowl potential. And Baker Mayfield and Darnold, they both have Pro Bowl potential too. It's just that they hit at their career average score was essentially high enough that it pretty much hit into the All-Pro averages for both those guys.
I'm sure Jets fans are very glad to hear that. And honestly, even if he's just a Pro Bowl quarterback, I think Jets fans would honestly take it, given the poor quarterback play we've had to watch for the past, I guess, decades at this point. Okay, so moving past Darnold, obviously he's the big guy of note. There are a few other guys the Jets drafted, and none really in specific. I just kind of wanted to know if you had any thoughts on the Jets draft class. I mean, they obviously took Nathan Shepard, a defensive lineman, in the 3rd round. I mean, older guy, 25, coming from a small school. That was a pick that I think drew some ire from Jets fans as a risk, but it could be a big boom as well. Chris Herndon from Miami, the 4th round tight end pick. And even a guy I thought was a steal in the 6th round, Perry Nickerson, a cornerback. I thought overall they had a pretty good class, but, obviously I'm biased as a Jets fan. I wanted to get kind of an outsider's perspective on how do you think the Jets kind of handled this draft. Do you think they filled their needs, got talent, and I guess in addition, in an analytics perspective, do you think they kind of to hit all the spots that they kind of needed to this offseason?
Well, I mean, the only issue with the Jets, when I actually did an analysis on the Jets draft, because basically I did an analytics review on them, which is on Common Man Football on the YouTube channel. Basically, you just put Jets draft analytics and the video will pop up. But, I like the draft. I think a guy like Nathan Shepard, he's essentially a Taven Bryan clone. He's one of those guys where when you look at his athleticism traits and you look at his production traits, Nathan Shepard is essentially, if Taven Bryan went to a small school, went to Fort Hays State, and didn't get into the NFL early because he played at Fort Hays State, then that would be Nathan Shepard, just from a athleticism standpoint, height standpoint, length standpoint, all of those sort of things. So, and of course, Taven Bryan is was the late 1st round pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars. On top of that, a guy like Fola Runzu, Fatou Kassi, film-wise, great player. Analytics-wise, he essentially tested kind of like a poor man's Harrison Phillips, who's another defensive tackle in this class. Essentially has the sort of skill set to be sort of a pretty good nose tackle / 5-tech type of guy. So I think in many ways, depth at defensive tackle is something that I do think got addressed. Perry Nickerson is a very productive cornerback. He's probably one of the more productive cornerbacks in this draft class. Just from a solo tackle perspective and pass deflection perspective. I think he had a 90.12 solo tackle production score and a 97.41 pass deflection score just for his conference, which definitely was Tulane, but that's still pretty good production. And, of course, he had a very, very good speed score of 91.23, which is what everybody talks about. He ran 4.32 at the combine. So, yeah, he's another guy who's fairly good. But then you kind of end with the running back out of Virginia State, whose production was kind of iffy. His athleticism traits if you look at him on paper, like if you look at the 4.40 and you look at the vertical and the broad jump and all that stuff, it looks great. But when you look at the fact that he's 185 pounds, it's kind of average. You know, like if he was a 220-pound back who did all that stuff, he'd be like Saquon Barkley, but he's, you know, not quite that. He's 185 pounds. So from that perspective, he's kind of an iffy guy. And then, of course, the tight end, he you guys drafted as well, and Chris Herndon. Looks like a starting tight end, but nothing to write home about. The tight end position is always kind of an iffy position when it comes to analytics, because either you're going to go on to become a Rob Gronkowski or a Tony Gonzalez or whatever, you know, being a crazy good athlete with good production, or you just end up being sort of a starter guy. And I think Herndon definitely has a chance to be a starter, but it's kind of iffy. But the Jets class in general, I mean, it was a solid class of guys. I do think that there are guys that I think are going to end up being starters, to really solid rotational guys. You know, Nathan Shepard and Phil Runzi fit that case. Nickerson fits that case. And, of course, Sam Darnold, you got one of the two quarterbacks in the class who has all-pro potential, Pro Bowl potential. So I think it's a good class from that perspective, but there are definitely a couple picks here and there that are kind of iffy, I guess. Like the Virginia State running back, for example.
Trenton Cannon, name looking for there.
Right.
I want to know your thoughts on the free agency class, because obviously you just hit on all the guys in the draft class. We had to pay some money for the draft class, and we had to pay a lot of money for the free agency class, and we're expecting immediate results from guys like Tremaine Johnson and Avery Williamson. So can you go over the free agency class and just tell us what you think of that?
Sure. Well, honestly, it was a pretty decent free agency class. Tremaine Johnson is another one of those guys that's like a carbon copy type of. I don't want to get all mad about this, because just because the player is the same height and the same weight and the same arm length as another player doesn't mean that he's that player. But Tremaine Johnson, in many ways, is like a Richard Sherman, just from a height, weight perspective, length perspective. Even athleticism-wise, they tested almost identical in terms of having above-average explosive lower body strength, which is essentially just that lower body explosiveness, and having kind of below-average speed and below-average flexibility. You know, he's essentially a press. You know, he's I don't want to say he's Richard Sherman, but you're going to use him in a similar way. And he's also been fairly productive as well. So, you know, that is sort of a good free agency if that is the type of cornerback you're looking for, which just by doing this, I think that's the type of direction that you want your defense to kind of go in, to have that kind of press man guy, and he can fit that bill. On top of that, Avery Williamson is probably one of the more underrated linebackers in the NFL. Tremendously productive out of college, great athleticism traits coming out of college as well, and ended up being a fairly productive player as well at the NFL level. So you have a long-term starting linebacker there. From that kind of perspective, Isaiah Crowell is in many ways sort of like, I don't want to say he's Marion Barber with less sauce, but that's really what he is, just from a data perspective. You know, he's a guy that I just say Marion Barber had some sauce, man. He was a problem. But
I remember that. That was kind of a throwback there. That's not a common name that you kind of get. I mean, that was like, what was that, 2010? I mean, that's still 8 years ago.
Yeah. It was a while ago. But Crowell has very similar athleticism traits, or even Ed Lacy without the, weight problem.
Obesity.
Without that.
Or diabetes. I don't know if he has diabetes, but just.
He's the only person in the world who gets paid to be fat. It's amazing.
Yeah, but Crowell is a similar athlete to all those guys. He can be a long-term starter. On top of that, in terms of passing downs especially, in 2015, 2016, and 2017, he was above average in terms of his ability to convert passes on third down into first down. So essentially, and this is compared to every running back since 2008. So he has a very good sort of third down conversion rate when it comes to catching the football through the air, which is very good. When you have a quarterback, a young quarterback, or when you need to get that third down sort of situation taken care of, Crowell can kind of do that. So both from a macro perspective and a micro perspective, Crowell is kind of a solid sort of long-term starter, potential running back. And of course, Teddy Bridgewater. And, Teddy Bridgewater has gotten a lot of flack on the Twitter community. You got people that love him. You got people that hate him, or at least are kind of indifferent towards him. But he was a guy that came out. He looked very decent as a long-term starter. He basically tested almost identical to Derek Carr in many ways, except for sort of the arm strength sort of stuff. But, he's a guy that could end up becoming a long-term starter or a spot starter or whatever. So, if he doesn't have another injury, a catastrophic injury, of course. But I felt like it was a pretty solid free agency class. I think you got guys that can come in immediately and become long-term starters. And as far as superstar players, I don't really see Tremaine Johnson turning into like a Darrelle Revis or anything like that, or even Crowell or Williamson for that matter. But these are guys that are going to become, significant contributors. And a lot of times in free agency, it's hard to get guys that become significant contributors. A lot of times free agency guys kind of bust out. So I think those three guys in particular, Crowell, Johnson, and Williamson, have a very good shot to at least become significant contributors.
Okay, I have another question about a free agency edition. And we kind of have a thing here on this show where people love to yell at me because I think Terrell Pryor is good. In fact, I think he's very good.
Wait, that is not why. Okay, so I'll give this question a little background, Jim, and then you can give your thoughts on Terrell Pryor when Kyle asks it. But Kyle made the bulk. I think we were ranking like the top 10 players on the Jets. And look, I think Terrell Pryor was, a solid addition. He'll be your 4th, 5th wide receiver. He brings you some size. Had a great year 2 years ago.
Size is important.
I know it is. Oh, thank you, Kyle. 2 years ago, in Cleveland, and then obviously the big free agent addition to Washington. It didn't go too well. Kyle is a big Terrell Pryor supporter. I still like him, but I'm not as big. And Kyle, I believe you claimed that he was the 4th best player on the roster.
On the roster,
which makes no sense at all. I mean, I'm not claiming that the Jets roster is uber talented, but to say that he's now better than, if you're looking at the top 5, you at least have probably Tremaine Johnson's probably in there. I would say Jamal Adams is probably in there. I'd probably put Robbie Anderson in there. You could then, stretch to, Bilal Powell's pretty productive, Quincy Enunwa. Leonard Williams is the obvious one I'm just missing there. I'm not claiming that the Jets roster is some amazing roster, but I'm pretty sure I'd take at least 3 wide receivers over Terrell Pryor. Kyle, that was why people were angry at you. But you please ask your question to Jim about Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, I want to know the analytics behind Terrell Pryor on production-wise. Obviously, the Washington year was not great, and I don't even know how many games do you need to make like your put this special formula that you have together. Like, do you need a minimum amount of games?
If you're saying, I think the better question would be, I think the minimum amount for wide receivers is, just trying to double check everything, but it's about 8 games at least.
Okay.
But I do treat guys that have less than 8, and they're like a totally different category. So that way I'm just comparing guys that play 8 or less, or 7 or less games, to guys that play 7 or less games.
Okay.
But I do have all the Terrell Pryor's data up here.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I want to hear that. I want to hear if it's good or bad.
Well, the only issue with Terrell Pryor is he is an incredibly inefficient wide receiver.
Oh, all right.
2016 was the season. No, okay, are there some positives about him? Absolutely. 2016, for example, had a crazy production year. He had, a 90.04 in terms of passing yardage market share, which essentially is it's basically talking about how much of the passing yardage he made up of his team, in Cleveland. Of course, in 2017, it kind of he was below average across the board in terms of those particular numbers. But from a micro perspective, I just say he's inefficient because his completion percentage, basically, I don't want to say, I guess people call it catch percentage and stuff like that. But his catch percentage on first down, second down, third down have been below average every single season. So anytime you target Terrell Pryor, just for example, if you target Terrell Pryor on third down, he will catch the ball. Compared to every other wide receiver, it is about 23.85 out of 100. So that isn't like his actual third down conversion rate. It's just compared to every other wide receiver in the NFL, every other wide receiver typically performs a lot better in terms of catching the ball on third down, second down, first down, and leading to a completion. In terms of actual conversion rate, 2016, which was the year that he got uber amounts of productive. Basically, he was the guy. He was the man. He was the number one wide receiver essentially. In that particular year, he was below average in terms of first down conversion rate and second down conversion rate, but was above average in terms of third down. And in 2017, he was below average in terms of first down conversion rate, but was above average on second down and above average on third down. So essentially, he's a wide receiver that does have a role. He's a guy that is tall. He's a mismatch type of guy. And if you put him in certain situations and target him in those situations, you're able to kind of convert in those sort of situations. But the difference between him and like a Julio Jones or basically a tall wide receiver that's actually good is that Julio Jones is a guy that's going to convert highly on first down, second down, and third down, whereas Terrell Pryor is really only going to do well in terms of certain situations, whether it's like red zone situations and those other sort of situations. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's a bust. I'm just saying he's a guy that is very inexperienced, which is the main sort of thing with Terrell Pryor, is that, this is a guy that just started playing wide receiver. I mean, he was throwing balls for Oakland not that long ago, guys. Like, he was a legit quarterback and then converted into a wide receiver. So, I don't think he's ever going to be like this crazy perennial Pro Bowler type ever. But does he fill a role? Is that sort of thing? I think yes. I think he definitely fills sort of a role. It's just that he's not the most efficient because of that lack of experience and knowledge in terms of the wide receiver position, which is very difficult. In fact, I'm actually amazed that a guy that was quarterback for most of his career switches to wide receiver in the NFL and actually is somewhat successful, because most of the time there's really only been two wide receivers, not including him, Randall L. and Julian Edelman, and those are really the only two wide receivers since the 90s that were not wide receivers in college and went on to become NFL wide receivers. It's very, very difficult to make that transition. So the fact that he's still doing it, he's still kicking it, is definitely a positive, I would say.
Yeah, I'm heavily banking on that. And Ben, you can attest to this. That's one of my strongest points, that this guy has been moderately successful. Moderately. I will say moderately because the Washington year was not great by standards. And obviously the injury doesn't help, that year. And the situation in Cleveland really never helps any player. Can't really think of a successful Cleveland Brown in the past 10 years besides, Peyton. What was that guy's name? The crazy one?
Hillis?
Peyton Hillis. There we go. So I'm holding out hope that Terrell Pryor, the freak athlete, can put up production-wise similar numbers to Cleveland with a better situation in New York and more talent around him.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that I think he has more talent. I mean, especially if Darnold is what we think he is. But, I mean, he's not going to be getting the same opportunities. At the very best, he's going to be the fourth string. You're right, but at the very best, he's going to start as the fourth-string wide receiver. And I'm a guy who looks at Terrell Pryor and says, look, I mean, he is 29 years old, so he's going to be hitting 30 next year. There's a guy that I really like in this roster.
Age is just a number.
I understand. And you're right, he's only been playing wide receiver for a few years. But there's a guy I really like on this roster to kind of get more reps, especially in the slot, and Chad Hansen. I wanted Terrell Pryor signed. I mean, look, this guy ran a 4.38, as Jim mentioned. I mean, he was, starting quarterback for Oakland only a few years ago.
Doesn't mean much.
And he's 6'4". No, those are positives. I'm saying this guy is a freak athlete, and he had a pretty great year 2 years ago. But I think, Jim, the word that you used, I think, is perfect, and it kind of encapsulates my thoughts on him. Is it's just kind of, you said inefficient, I believe what you said, and yeah, that's just kind of what he is. Could Terrell Pryor have a game this year where he puts up 2 touchdowns or whatever and, is a stud? Yeah, but he's not going to be the guy that's week in, week out going to be catching, 5, 10 ball. That's just not him. He might get 1, 2, 3, and he might get a touchdown or 2, but he's going to disappear. And he's just not your consistent, reliable wide receiver. But I like the move. They got him on a good contract. He's your 4th, 5th string wide receiver. You can bring him in. He's got size. I was a big fan of the move, but this is the 4th best jet in the team. I think is incorrect, to say the least. Now, Jim, just a few more questions here. I kind of want to talk about the 2 rookies the Jets drafted last year, Marcus May and Jamal Adams. Obviously, the Jets last year were kind of an enigma because it kind of felt like they had a good year in the sense that they surprised a lot. But then you think about, okay, they did go 5-11, and I think they lost like the last, I forget the number, what was it, like the last 8 of their 9 or something crazy. I mean, they only won a few games towards the end there, but especially after McCown went down against Denver. So, they lost a lot of games there at the end, and they finished with 5-11. They were the 6th worst team in football. So it wasn't like they had this amazing year, but looking at, what was the source of some of their positives? And I think the biggest difference you saw from 2016 to 17 was in the back end, the secondary, and specifically the safeties. They went from Marcus Gilchrist and Calvin Pryor to Marcus May and Jamal Adams, two rookies, two guys who had very productive rookie years in my mind. I mean, obviously they had their growing pains. Jamal Adams just a few tackles. Marcus May missed a few coverages. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good year. I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on their rookie years, and then just kind of your thoughts as they transition into their sophomore years, your kind of expectations for them and whatnot.
Sure. Well, that was the big thing about that particular draft class. You of course get Jamal Adams, who was a very, very productive player. Athleticism wasn't quite elite at the safety position, but definitely was in that sort of gray area where it could kind of go either way with him. But definitely had very, very good production coming out. And of course, Marcus May, another guy that had great production coming out as well. And, they both had very solid seasons in terms of just, their overall production, which isn't always the best thing ever. Most of the time when safeties have tremendously productive seasons, it's because the linebackers aren't doing their job as much, essentially, because a lot of times safeties that rack up tons of tackles, it's because the linebackers aren't exactly doing their role 100%. But still, I do think that, again, both those guys kind of filled that role fairly well. The defense overall for the Jets, just from a data perspective, wasn't that amazing. Now, there are some things that contribute to this, having the offense that wasn't really that great. For example, their offensive score percentage last year was 35.75 out of 100, which basically deals with how often when you get the ball do you score, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown or whatever. And they were below average. And the defense also was below average in terms of preventing points as well. I think they allowed 46 touchdowns last year, which is not the worst thing ever. I mean, I've seen worse, but it's not exactly in that sort of allowing only 30 touchdowns or less, which is a pretty good area to be in, at least right now in the modern NFL. So there was a time when defenses were only allowing 17 touchdowns a year, but that's kind of gone away. So you're kind of trying to hit that 30 area. So there are ways to go there, but I think both Jamal Adams and Marcus May had very, very solid seasons. I think Adams in particular kind of showed why he was, a top 10 overall selection. There's a lot more work to do, of course, which is why I think they made the free agency moves, of course, getting Tremaine Johnson, getting Avery Williamson, why they went out and got the defensive tackles that they did, at least in terms of the draft as well, to build some depth there, because they also kind of, Sheldon Richardson, of course, is no longer there, which is a good thing or a bad thing depending on who you talk to, with Jets people. But yeah, I do. I mean, again, there's definitely some Sheldon Richardson fans out there. I'm not trying to sort of. He's the guy who you can kind of trace Sam Darnold back to him. I mean, we traded him, got Jermaine Kearse and a second. We turned one of those seconds into Sam Darnold. So I'm actually a big Sheldon Richardson fan. So I'm not going to hate on the guy. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, they're not in. I guess the best way to put this is the thing about the Eagles, and I don't want to make this a whole Eagles show or whatever, but their defense, even in 2016, with the whole offensive woes that they had, the defense was actually performing fairly well, and then all they had to do was to get better production out of Carson Wentz, of course, and then he went on and, of course, won the Super Bowl. The Jets are not exactly in that position. They still have a lot more work to do on defense, but I do think they're going in the right direction. So I would say that, again, with the additions they made in free agency and with these other sort of things that they did, of course, in terms of the draft, I do think they're in position to at least improve the defense. The offense, I think, is going to struggle, but I do think not this year, but next year could be the year that the Jets finally make that sort of jump to relevancy or winning or whatever you want to call it. Potentially playoffs. Maybe. I don't want to say playoffs, but it's definitely a potential there.
Yeah, that was kind of just my last question, which was just about, looking at this team, the jump they made from last year or 2 years ago to that last year, then, the jump you're expecting from last year to this year, and then kind of as a whole, your thoughts on Maccagnan/Bowles' plan for the future. They've kind of made it clear since they blew up the roster in 2016. The move they made to go get Sam Darnold, obviously clearing all the cap beforehand, getting Sam Darnold, adding some key long-term starters, as you said. Next year, they're going to have the most cap space in the NFL. They'll have all their picks except 1 second. Just kind of your thoughts. I guess we'll start kind of two-part, and you kind of answered it towards the end there, but your expectations for this year, I guess I don't want to say record-wise, but just kind of what you're expecting or what you would be expecting as a Jets fan this year. But then the one I'm kind of more interested about is just kind of see your thoughts on their plan as a whole. I mean, they've kind of showed, the trajectory has changed from what it was mid-year through 2016 when we were watching Ryan Fitzpatrick get blown out like 41-3 by the Indianapolis Colts on Monday Night Football. It's changed quite a bit since then. There's at least some hope in Florham Park. So I kind of wanted to get, first, kind of your just expectations for this year, and then lastly, your thoughts on the way that the plan is going.
Well, expectations for this year, I would definitely say there is potential that they could get to 8-8, 7 wins in that sort of range. Kind of looking at the schedule and looking at sort of the improvements they made on defense. At the same time, if they went out and only won 6 games or 5 games, it wouldn't really surprise me either. But only because, you have a rookie quarterback. And you have to realize that you're dealing with a quarterback that is very young, and if Sam Darnold does end up being the starting quarterback, it's just not going to be the most perfect situation ever. So you just have to kind of he's going to have some growing pains. He's going to have a game where he throws 3 interceptions, and that's going to happen. It's just even Peyton Manning had games like that as a rookie, and I'm not saying he's Peyton Manning, but I'm just saying, when rookie quarterbacks, they have especially really, really young ones. So you definitely have that potential. But I do think they're going in the right direction. I do think defensively speaking, they made a lot of improvements in the free agency cycle and, of course, the draft to kind of improve those areas. But as far as immediate win improvement, I'm just a little iffy on that. So, again, I think 7 wins, 6 wins is definitely a real possibility. But anything more than that, I just don't quite see, just because of the rookie quarterback situation and just a lot of, additional pieces here and there that you kind of have to deal with. But I do think things are going up for them. I don't think they're going to go backwards. I just think that they have a lot more work to do, I guess, in terms of their offense in particular.
I have one more question for you before we let you go. You ready for this one?
Okay. Sure.
All right. I was doing some light cyber stalking on your Twitter in preparation for this, just, looking at all your work, clicking on all your links and stuff. I saw an amazing graphic that I wanted to thank you for and ask about the Aaron Rodgers, Olivia Munn thing. That may be the greatest thing I've ever seen analytics used for. And it may have brought me a franchise quarterback. That is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I also have a follow-up question to it. Do you have it for Danica Patrick, too? Because I'm convinced she was poison in his life as well.
I'm working on the Danica Patrick one. So
okay, good.
I will. I've been doing a lot of data work. I've been doing a lot of data collection stuff. Of course, the hot girlfriend quarterback index is something I've been working on, which I'll probably unveil next year somewhere on there. But,
no way, you have that coming out?
Yes, that is going to come out very, very soon. The hot quarterback.
Is AJ McCarron in it?
AJ McCarron is in it. Pretty much Blake Bortles, of course, is in it. But basically, it's whenever the hot girlfriend leaves them. For example, Blake Bortles' girlfriend, for example, she left him, and we saw what happened. AJ McCarron, his girlfriend left him. We saw what happened. So it's going to have a particular focus on how hot the girlfriend is when they get them and whether or not they stay with them or leave them, and how that determines how their performance is in the future. So I'm going to be working on that one as well.
Wait, AJ McCarron's girlfriend left him?
Yes.
The one that Vern Lundquist was just staring at for 30 minutes during the championship game?
Yes, they are no longer a thing, as he's no longer booed up, as someone would say.
That was a solid pop culture reference. All right, Jim, thank you so much for coming on. why don't you go ahead and shout out, your Twitter and your Amazon. How does that work on Amazon? Do you have like a profile or just like a distributor thing?
I have a author page,
Okay.
but that's really about it. But I do have the link to the Amazon on my Twitter account, which is @Jimmetrics. And, of course, you can check out my YouTube channel, Common Man Football, on YouTube. And that's pretty much all the stuff I've been working on so far.
All right.
Yeah, Jim, I just want to thank you for coming on. And definitely, if you're a Jets fan and even just an NFL fan, make sure to check out his Common Man Football YouTube channel. I watched it earlier this week, and I'm really impressed, Jim. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for putting up with Kyle and I. And as I was kind of texting our Turn on the Jets group chat, Jim Cobern is a really good guest, and I would recommend getting him on some other podcasts. So I just want to thank you for coming on, man. Hope you had a nice 4th of July. I know we kind of had a scheduling thing because we were going to have you on last week, but thanks for being understanding, and hope you have a good rest of your week.
Absolutely. Hope you guys have a great week as well.
All right. Thanks, man. All right, that was Jim Cobern. Again, you can check him out @JimMetrics on Twitter. And you can also, as he said, Common Man Football on YouTube. It's a great place to go. And you can also find him online, jimmetrics.com. I was kind of confused. What were you asking about the Amazon thing? Because I didn't know about that plug. What was that?
He has a book out on Amazon about analytics.
Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that's what you were referencing there. So I was like, anyways.
Yeah, because I don't know how that works for Amazon. I thought it was just like distributors, like the publishing company, but I don't know if it's just like if it's like a paperback. I'm pretty sure it's a paperback because that's what it is in like the photos and stuff. But it might just be a download. So I didn't know how it was like distributed or anything. I didn't know if he wanted us to plug like a page that he had on there. But we got it resolved. Also, boot up reference, we're very solid. Very solid. Ben, I know you didn't get that.
Really? You don't think I got that?
No, I don't.
It's not that hard to understand.
All right, so explain it.
Okay, this is how I interpreted it. We'll see if unless there's some hidden meaning. Generally, a boo refers to
No. See, you're already wrong. You don't
really.
Oh
he said "booed up." I think that's what he meant.
It's a song.
Okay, then I didn't get the reference. Speaking of songs, you can roast me for a second. But speaking of songs, we have a. I think you.
Mount Rushmore.
Yes. So Kyle,
are we gonna say that for the end? I mean, how long are we doing?
We can save that for the end. We'll save that for the end. Just a little.
Kyle has a lot of news.
Kyle has a lot of. We got to talk about some Jet stuff. We're gonna bring Scott Mason on, close of the pod, and Kyle. As I was about to say, you have a lot of creative energy, and so we have a format now. We can just release in a few minutes Kyle's creative energy and his pop culture. Just a few minutes, 2-3 minutes.
I'd love to just release whenever I want to.
Okay, shut up, please. I mean that with love.
Remember earlier when you were saying you have no idea how to respond to my jokes sometimes?
Yeah, I think that
was your best response by far.
Yes, I think I'm just going to tell him to shut. Anyways, 2-3 minutes, end of the podcast, we talk about something outside of the Jets. Last episode, we talked a little bit about Fortnite. Kyle wants to talk about Drake's newest album, so we'll talk about that at the end. But right now, let's talk some Jets football. Again, not much has changed from our last 3 or 4 episodes because not much has happened, and that's kind of a good thing. I mean, you look at the state of the Bills right now. I don't think you want Jets news coming out right now. Really, the only
thought we weren't going to talk about that.
That wasn't. That's serious. I mean, it's the same thing that happened with the Jets. Sheldon Richardson a few years ago, Robbie Anderson. They get a 6-week break, and that's an opportunity for players to make mistakes. And
is Robbie not getting suspended? Because a bunch of suspensions were handed out over the past week.
I don't believe he is. I mean, I don't know for sure. He still could, I believe, but all his charges were dropped, or all his criminal charges were dropped. So we'll see.
That doesn't mean crap in the NFL.
Yeah, we'll see. But my point is basically you almost don't want any news this next 6 weeks because all it means is really some player got hurt doing whatever recreational activity, or some player got in trouble with the law. For the most part. There is one piece of news that happened today, which was the supplemental draft was today. I know some guys, some people were interested in the Jets potentially picking one of these corners between Beal and Adonis. The Jets didn't take it, and I think part of that's because you gave up a second-round pick for Darnold, so you don't want to give up draft picks as you do in the supplemental draft, even if it's a lower draft pick. But they did sign, and I don't want to mess up his name here.
Brandon Bryant.
That's what I was going to say. Brandon Knight, and I was like, that's not right. He was the
point guard for
Suns or whatever.
Milwaukee.
He was on the Pistons too. I don't know.
Milwaukee.
Anyway, Brandon Bryant, safety, Mississippi State. Well, Kyle, he played for. Hold on. Now I got to stop.
He got traded to Milwaukee at the beginning of the season.
Also on the Pistons. Hold on. Let me see all the teams.
He was on the Suns.
Wasn't he on the Suns? That was my first thing. Yeah, he's on the Suns right now. So take that.
What?
He's on the Suns right now.
Eric Bledsoe.
No, Brandon Knight.
No, I'm thinking of Eric Bledsoe, though. That's who they traded to Milwaukee.
All right. Anyways, Kyle, your thoughts on him? I mean, it seems like Michael Cadman loves safeties. As somebody pointed out, and they tweeted, I guess safety is just the new linebacker. You're just going to stack up as many as possible. Just your thoughts on him. Do you think he can make the roster? I mean, obviously, Adams and Mayer locks. After that, I mean, there's, I guess, some flexibility. Terrence Brooks was re-up, so, I mean, it seems like he'll stay as the veteran, but it doesn't seem like – I mean, it seems like there's an open space there for the last spot. Do you think he's the guy who can nab it?
No, because we got the guy from he was a free agent. What's his name? Oh boy.
It'll come. C.J. Wilcox. There you go.
There it is. Yeah. J.J. Wilcox, actually. I'm pretty sure.
Is it J.J.? Hold on. You keep talking.
I think it's J.J. Wilcox. I may be wrong.
C.J. Wilcox is a player on the Blazers, so my apologies. It is J.J. Wilcox.
Wow.
I don't know how I.
Ben, are you blazed right now?
No, it's I'm a big Trailblazers fan since I live in Portland,
yeah,
and it's summer league, and so.
That was the joke.
Yeah. Cool.
Wait, do you guys market that as Get Blazed? You should definitely market that as Get Blazed.
They market it as Rip City. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, I know that's a thing. I've never understood it, though. Is that like a reference?
No, I think it was a basketball reference, but if you didn't get it off the first, then you're not going to get it again. So just keep talking.
No, like you rip someone, like when they're dribbling. I know what that means. But
No, okay, the way I'll look it up. The way I always interpreted it was like...
We're going to get another bad review about talking anything but football.
These guys don't talk about football.
These guys don't talk about football.
Okay, hold on. So I originally interpreted it as like the sound the net makes when you make a three. Because it's like splash. It's like okay, that was kind of what it was. That's what I always thought it was about.
More of like a.
Talk about Brandon Bryant. Talk about him a little bit more.
Okay.
Talk about what you like. I'll look this up. I'll get back to you. But then, okay, sorry, just keep talking about it.
Okay, Brandon Bryant, I did some quick and dirty scouting. That's how I usually like to do it. 5'11" to 6 foot. I found 3 conflicting reports on it. I'm going to say he's 5'11" because they usually like to give a guy an inch or two at the pro day, or not an inch or two, but round up to make him better. Usually that's how that goes down. Decent athleticism, ran a solid 40. Based off his high school, athleticism numbers, he's an all-right athlete. The only real pro day number I guess we had was the 40. I think that ended up being around 4.4. Not very physical, plays free safety, solid ball hawk. I tweeted out a clip of him, earlier picking off Jeff Driscoll, who was drafted into the NFL, and it started, I think, 2 or 3 games. He's a backup now for the 49ers, I believe. Unless he got cut. Last I checked, he was a backup for the 49ers. Bengals. He
was on the 49ers.
Yep, that's right. He wasn't. He went to the Bengals. I mean, there were some off-the-field issues that have been quite taped up, as far as I can tell. All I can see really is that he was suspended for the majority of camp for a couple years, actually. So off-the-field issues are definite. I don't know exactly what they are, though. I'm going to have to do some more digging on them. Right now, I think this is just a body in camp. The Jets signed him. We didn't have to get anything for him. This is probably a guy who they had on their draft board, saw him sitting there, made a call. If they really, and I know people are upset that we didn't get either of the corners, I think we're fine at corner for now. We already, I don't want to say wasted, but invested draft capital into a corner in Perry Nickerson this year, obviously signing Tremaine Johnson, re-signing Morris Claiborne. I think the Jets have addressed the cornerback position as much as they would like to right now, and we don't want to give up any more draft capital for next year's draft because the Giants now have to give up a what? 3rd-round pick?
He was picked in the 3rd. Well, I'll look that up as well. But my point, that I was going to say there is, I mean, not only Perry Nickerson, but also Rashard Robinson, they traded a 5th for. So it's like you've invested already 2 mid-late picks, 2 day 3 picks. And so if they were to pick, Beal, I think he might commit a 4th.
By the way,
Adonis, you're giving up a 4th, a 3rd, a 5th, and it's like you already invested 2 this year. They're good prospects, but I think I agree. I'm okay with the Jets cornerback position, especially if Perry Nickerson can grow. It's a young, crowded cornerback room, so hopefully there are guys that can separate themselves, but after Tremaine Johnson, Morris Claiborne, I guess Buster Screen counts, and then I guess Perry Nickerson, there's no locks to make the roster. There is a bunch of guys fighting between Justin Burris, Darryl Roberts, Xavier Coleman,
forgot about them.
Jeremy Clark, Derek Jones. I mean, there's just so many guys at the back end of the roster. Doesn't mean they're all good, but you add another body to that. I don't know. I'm fine with not investing more draft capital into a guy. What were you about to say there?
Yeah, I know we've said this before. It was a while ago, but I just want to remind everybody. Rashard Robinson's an idiot. Just the definition of an imbecile. The guy got pulled over.
He's not coming on the show.
No, I don't even care. I don't want him on the show. He's an idiot. Got pulled over, knew he had edibles in the car, and just let the edibles sit there instead of just eating them. Idiot. He'd rather get caught.
Were there? I think he's about to pound 20 edibles.
I think the report said 2 or 3. That's like, if there's 20.
That would make him more intoxicated.
What? Oh boy.
I'm using intoxicated as the term. There's another term here, but I was just saying, under the influence of drugs, I guess.
No.
It doesn't just refer.
They take a while to kick in.
Yeah, but if he still is eating it, he might be going to jail for, what was it? Did he get pulled over for DUI?
He just got pulled over for, I don't know why he got pulled over. I mean, I'm hoping there was a reason. Probably not, if we're being honest.
Okay.
But he got pulled over. And then he got caught with them when they searched his car. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I would have ate him.
Good to know.
Because
I'm trying to figure out what they gave up. Okay, he was a third-round pick. Yeah, they gave up a third-round pick.
Yeah, so now they don't have a third-round pick.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go to Scott Mason now, but if people want to know even though
are we?
To do with the Jets, yes, we are going to.
When are we doing the Mount Rushmore? Because he's going to do all the plugs and stuff.
We're doing after him.
So we're gonna do the plugs and then we're gonna do Mount Rushmore.
No, what are you talking? No,
because Scott always closes the show with plugs.
Yeah, plugs for him, and then we kick him off, and we have a few minutes there to talk. I think that's appropriate. We end the Jets talk, and then we have a few minutes to talk about whatever. That's what we did last time. If you want to change it up, I mean, all right. The origin, by the way, of Rip City. I wasn't that off, but. And it's almost the equivalent of saying, boom shakalaka. It was in, the 70s, and this announcer, they had this big comeback against the Lakers, and we had just, who was it? Jim Barnett, our guard, launched up a 3, and our announcer at the time yelled, Rip City. So I think it means, let it rip, in hockey,
Yeah,
I think that's what it's for. That's what it's
let it rip. Okay, that's horrible.
Yeah. Well, Rip City is just kind of the thing. I mean, there's the land, the town.
Okay, that's because Cleveland kind of works. I don't know what the town is. Oh, the town is Oakland.
All right.
So that makes sense for Golden State.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have our own fun nickname as well. I mean, you can go down. What's there's other ones. I don't know. Anyways, let's just get
Miami's 305. I mean, the Charlotte Hornets are Buzz City, because Hornets buzz.
Yeah, but our thing is, about what year was this?
Why aren't the Bucks get bucked up?
It would just be lame.
God, I would be a marketing.
That was literally that was our first season as an NBA franchise. So that makes more sense. That was literally our first year as an NBA franchise.
You guys just settled for anything.
We went to the finals 5 years later and won it. So.
Oh, you won the finals in '77.
Okay, 76 actually. So, well, I guess it would be in 77. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways,
76, 77 season.
It's the same thing when people say, the Jets technically won the Super Bowl in 1969, but it was the 1968
68.
season.
Yeah,
so this is
technically
this is the 50th anniversary of that team, right? Of the Jets, not the Blazers. Bringing it back to what this podcast is about. Yeah, it's 50th. Yeah, 68. Yeah. So I wonder if there were a patch or something.
Beat it with the 68 Jets.
Yeah, nice Rihanna.
Thank you. Rihanna's toxic.
Okay. I think that, why wouldn't they wear a pack? We'll get Scott Mason on the history.
We'll get Scott on. He's the history guy.
He doesn't even get an intro. Scott, you're on now.
Scott, you're on.
What's going on, gentlemen? By the way, something that's been bothering me now for a couple of weeks.
Oh.
Kyle, you keep repeating that it was Vern Lundquist who was doing the gawking. It was not Vern Lundquist. It was Brent Musburger.
Oh, Kyle, you messed that up?
Really?
Yeah, now that he said it, it definitely was Brent. I wasn't really paying attention. You're talking about when he was the announcer and he kept talking about AJ McCarron's girlfriend. He's like, oh, my.
Yeah, I thought that was...
Yeah, it's Brent. He's the main commentator.
But it's SEC football on CBS.
Yeah, but it was during the playoffs. It was during the championship, right?
Yeah, but Vern Lundquist still does that.
Not
Brent
wasn't it the
Musburger.
national championship?
Yeah, it was the national championship,
Yeah, so
and it was Brent Musburger.
It was Brent Musburger? All right, well, now I really can't say Brent.
Sorry,
I'm going to have a hard time saying
it.
Not only that, but Brent Musburger kind of had a hand in helping out a girl who would become a footnote in Jets history, Jen Sturger, who you know from Florida State. So we know all about that.
That was the Favre thing, right?
Yeah, it was. I felt so bad for her because she didn't deserve any of that stuff, and they kind of ruined her life over it. But, you know, that is unfortunately what she's known for now.
Yeah, Brett Favre is... Wait. I mean... Okay, because this was before...
I don't like that he's pausing, because the fact that he's hesitating on a joke...
No. I'm not making a joke. I'm not
Scott,
making
let's talk about the joke.
I'm not making a joke. If I recall correctly, Brett Favre sent a photo that was not wanted, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And why did she get made fun of because of it?
Because she was the one that apparently she was talking to somebody in confidence who took the picture, I think it was from Deadspin or one of those douchey websites, and they ended up publishing the thing and outing her and all of that, and so then she kind of became known as the Brett Favre girl, and that sort of followed her forever. So to this day, people know her as the two things people know her for is the Brett Favre thing and Brent Musburger basically drooling over her during a Florida State game. So I feel bad because she's actually pretty talented, but that's what she gets known for.
What does she do?
She does media. She's like a TV person.
Yeah, I've never.
That's what she was doing at the time with the Jets. She was doing like I think she was doing what like Olivia Landis does now.
Oh, I thought she was in like HR or something.
No. She's a media person. I think she was doing like something similar to what Olivia Landis does now.
Oh, okay. So it was like Ben and Alex Giammo.
I guess kind of like that, except Ben's not Brett Favre.
Oh, definitely not.
Hey. Well,
Ben cannot wear a pair of Wrangler jeans. Also, Ben, you should definitely stop before you say you are and incriminate yourself.
No,
he's got a point, Ben.
Yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away.
I don't think I can grow the same beard as Brett Favre, though. I will say that.
Well, you're not 40.
You might be able to do that. I will say this, though. This is the one instance where you should definitely listen to Kyle. This is not the time you want to compare yourself to Brett Favre. Yeah.
Well, I was saying yes. I mean, no on the bad stuff, but like, hey, you insult my ability to wear Wrangler jeans? Are you kidding me, Kyle?
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think you can pull off Wrangler jeans.
Bet. All right. Let's talk about some Jets topics. Yeah, I guess so. Scott, I'll turn to you with the one piece of news, and then we have some fun kind of different questions to fill the void of content. Brandon Bryant, do you have any thoughts on him? Supplemental undrafted pick for the Jets. Do you have any thoughts on what he brings to the Jets safety depth?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about him other than what I read real quickly after the Jets picked him. I will say he seems to be a guy that has some pretty interesting skills athletically, and he has a chip on his shoulder. Clearly, he was tweeting out afterwards something about, I got something to prove, Jets. So maybe he comes in here and gives him some depth. I mean, really, with Miles injured and, with the whole situation with, who's that dude? And I'm drawing a blank. The one who was supposed to sign with the 49ers and then turn. Yeah, J.J. Wilcox. Yeah, Wilcox was a good signing. But he's the only one with Rontez Miles out that I really think of as having any kind of value as a safety besides the starters in May and Adams. So maybe he comes in and adds some depth. And listen, he's a young guy. If he develops into something, I mean, they didn't draft him, so it's really like getting a find as an undrafted free agent. It's kind of one of those nothing to lose, everything to gain type of thing. So hopefully they get something out of him.
I like that. That was kind of what I was saying. I think worst case scenario for him, I think he's a practice squad guy.
Sure.
Just 'cause, I think that's probably what he's kind of looking at. I mean, as you mentioned, J.J. Wilcox has the veteran presence, but you can make the argument, look, I mean, the Jets already got Terrence Brooke, and he's a veteran, so maybe you go, with the younger guy. I mean, look, he is a rookie, so we'll see. I mean, if he's playing hard and he's playing better than J.J., then I think you could see him make the roster. Scott, something that we did last episode, we did a Mount Rushmore of Jets running backs, and as you are the Jets history buff on this podcast, I think you're more than invited to do the Jets wide receivers Mount Rushmore. So, Kyle, I guess I'll start with you, unless you're not ready. I don't think you are.
No, how are we going to do this like a draft? Because I was thinking about it, I was like, last time, we're just going to pick like the same 4 people every time. We need to have it like a draft. Or like, I'll say Altoon. All right, so nobody can say Altoon anymore. And then you got to go like...
Are you going to talk about Altoon? Like, how much do you know about Altoon?
No, we're doing Mount Rushmore of Jets wide receivers, right?
Yeah, well, there's 3 of them. I'm trying to get at what you're saying.
Okay, so we can definitely find 12 wide receivers that have been great to the Jets.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sure. I thought you... Okay, sorry. I understand.
Yeah, no.
So he's saying we find the 12 best, and we kind of take our... It's almost like a fantasy draft for Jets wide receivers.
So I guess we've now changed it for Mount Rushmore. I actually like this idea, Kyle. So now it's a fantasy...
It is Mount Rushmore.
But it's a fantasy draft board. Okay, I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go first pick Scott, second pick third pick me. Scott's the guest. And I didn't put myself in front of you. So
I thought well, you started with, all right, I'm going to go first pick, and then like I cut you off before you said Scott, so I thought you were jumping the gun there, Ben. How are we doing this? Are we doing like snake draft?
No, this isn't that big of a deal, but sure, I guess we'll go snake draft. All right, Scott, first pick. Out of all the receivers, you have 4. Well, we can change it from Mount Rushmore. I mean, it's the same premise, but you want to have 4 receivers on your team. You have first pick out of every guy who's suited up. However, the one pretense I'll make here is that you get the player that they were for the Jets. So their peak season as a member of the Jets. So, I mean, like you're not getting Derek Mason's not going to be the Derek Masons for the Ravens. You're going to get the half a season 2011 Derek Mason. So,
yeah, that makes sense. Jets version of the guy, sure.
Yes. All right. So first pick, you need your number 1 wide receiver. You could go slot guy, number 2 guy, maybe a depth guy. Who's your pick?
Okay, so I'm a little bit biased here because I'm kind of friends with the guy, so I'm going to draft him ahead of Don Maynard. I'm going to go with Wesley Walker here, and the reason is I think that when Wesley was healthy, he was absolutely unguardable. He had speed that they couldn't deal with. He had moves they couldn't do anything about, and he did all of it with one good eye, too, which is amazing just to think of. You look back then, he was the 33rd pick in the draft. They didn't even know that he couldn't see out of one eye. Imagine that today. That would never happen.
There's a Robbie Anderson police officer wife joke there somewhere.
Oh, boy. No, you knew Kyle was coming with it, so you had the preemptive answer.
Yeah.
But I just think that
I didn't make the joke. I just acknowledged that there was, but there's a joke.
That there was one that was coming. Yeah.
We also just missed Scott saying coming twice in a row. I just want to throw that out there.
Nice, Kyle. Yeah, nice. Really funny. Yeah.
Thank you.
Killed it. You should be a comedian, man. I think you could sell at Madison Square Garden with jokes like, dude, he said coming twice in a row.
And you should be less of an ignorant asshole 24/7.
Ooh. Hit me right in the heart.
So anyway, as we navigate around Kyle's 12-year-old boy jokes, I will take Wesley Walker as the first one because I just think that when he was at his best, he was probably, I would say peak Wesley Walker was the best receiver the Jets ever had. Now, again, the issues with him became injuries and such, but that's who I'll go with, even though Maynard obviously is the one that's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good pick, and especially if we're doing peak seasons for a guy, Wesley Walker was definitely the right pick. Kyle, your turn.
Okay, I thought this was going to be a slam dunk. I'm surprised Scott gave me a reason. I'm going Don Maynard. I'll take that.
Yeah, for me, you're not going to give any more explanation, I guess.
No.
Kind of self-explanatory. I mean, leader in receiving yards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, that makes sense. And the leader in touchdowns as well. So he had 11. I'm looking at the stats right now. 1,100 receiving yards. The next closest was Wesley Walker, but he has him because Wesley Walker has 8,000. And then touchdowns, Don Maynard had 88. Next closest was Wesley Walker. He had 71. So Don Maynard was definitely a beast. Good job, Kyle. Then you always have to wonder about, how those guys in the 60s, how would they hold up today? I mean, do you think that'd be if you put Don Maynard on an NFL team right now? I mean, how good is he? That's always the question. I mean, but I guess you'll never know. I guess
you can't compare that way. You got to compare era to era because it's not fair based on competition. Like, you don't know how if Maynard was born like 20 years later, how he would have been as far as developmentally from, physically and all that. So.
Yeah, so I got a thought process here for my guy. I'm trying to see as far as who I should go with. I'm going back. There's 3 guys here. I'm gonna go Wayne Corbett. I feel like, and here's the reason for that actually, and I guess I'll explain it after my next pick. But I feel like Wayne Corbett is different than the other 2 guys I could have taken. Meaning he definitely feels the void of he's that always open, always reliable slot receiver. So, yeah, maybe going slot receiver isn't the right move, but both you guys went with guys who can be number 1 wide receivers. So I'll take the one guy who's the obvious. I mean, obviously there's other guys, like Jericho Cotchery's a guy, but I'll take the one guy who's the obvious slot receiver, Jets fan favorite, and dominated during his time here. 3rd all-time receiver in receiving yards. I'll take him and put him on my roster as the 3. Scott, back to you.
No, that's not. That's not.
I got Snake. That's the Snake. It's me. Okay, there we go. Never mind. Then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go. So now it's between my 2. I'll go.
Oh, that's what we're doing. Okay, so you go pick twice.
Snake,
okay.
Yeah. Hold on. Give me about 10 seconds here.
Don't you cuck me, Ben. Don't you steal my guy.
There's 2 guys I want.
Don't do it.
Oh God, they're literally tied. And I'll go Keyshawn. I'll take Keyshawn.
Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God.
So I know who's going to get picked next, but Altoon was the guy I was going back and forth with. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if that's where Kyle's going to be going.
Those are my 2 options for the next. Actually, I had 3 options, but
I figure, okay, my thinking is I think peak Keyshawn, and Scott, you're obviously the only guy that was really alive. I'll take peak Keyshawn over peak Altoon. Specifically, you look at that 1998 season. I mean, but then you have to realize, okay, who is Altoon's? I mean, Altoon had Ken O'Brien, I guess, but I think, for the 98 season for Keyshawn, he definitely had the benefit of having Vinny and having Curtis Martin, having a great team there. But I'm going to take, Keyshawn. I have a fantastic number 1 wide receiver at his peak, because you remember, this is them at their peak. So I'm without all the dramatic.
FYI, this isn't about like depth chart. This is just the best receiver.
Yeah, I guess so, but I'm kind of building as a depth chart. You can do best receiver if you want. But I'm saying, look, I'm an NFL coach. We're drafting based off guys that have suited up for the Jets. If I'm building it as a depth chart. So I'm going Keyshawn my 1. I got Wayne Corbett as my 3. Kyle, I feel like it's a pretty big thing we have to decide here. I mean, because neither of you have picked. I think it should be depth chart. I think it makes more fun. Scott, your take. Scott, whatever you say is what goes here. Do you think it should be built more like a depth chart?
That is
well. First of all, I'll let Kyle make his pick and then I'll weigh in because I don't want to say something and then Kyle picks somebody that I wanted. So
yeah,
go ahead, Kyle.
All right, my second pick, following the Hall of Famer Don Maynard, is Altoon, the guy who was with the Jets for 7 years, all time.
Yeah, I absolutely love Altoon. That's who I would have picked for sure. I think Keyshawn is great. The thing for me that was amazing about Altoon is that he was used in a weird way. They used him as a possession wide receiver, but he was fast as hell. If they would have had him on the outside more with Wesley, the 2 of them had like 4.3 speed, which back then was a big deal. Even now it's a pretty big deal. And Al is 6'4" also. The only thing that killed Toon and maybe limited him from potentially becoming an all-time great is he just getting hammered in the head, and part of it is because of the possession thing. And it was funny when I had JoJo Townsell on the show, he talked about it. Nobody could cover Al one-on-one. He was too big and too fast, but what they could do was pound him, which you couldn't really get away with now. So what they would do is they would just smash him at the line of scrimmage. But I think if you put him in today's NFL, or even if you had him with somebody that was going to be able to coach him in the proper way and use him right, because I would argue that Walton didn't, I think that Al Toon was better at his best than Keyshawn. But you can't go wrong with Keyshawn either. I mean, as far as big possession receivers go, I mean, he was the best one that the Jets have ever had. I mean, and he was very tough to guard because he was a pretty good route runner and he was so big and had great hands. So, yeah, you can't really go wrong, Ben. I'm not going to criticize the pick. I would have gone with Toon, but Keyshawn at his best was great too.
All right, so, Scott, you have the pick now.
All right, so now with all the guys I probably would have picked off.
Before we do it, Scott, I want to make it clear. Are you saying, because I'm building this like a depth chart, I think that's more interesting because you're getting different types of guys here. Are you just saying best 4? I mean, you could build, because you could say that this is a depth chart, but Kyle's just going to take the best 4 receivers and play them where they play.
Who did you take before Keyshawn? Remind me.
I took Wayne Corbett.
Okay, so you have Keyshawn and Corbett. I mean, obviously, look, the thing about Al
is a better Jets wide receiver than Keyshawn Johnson. And it's not even close.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about...
No, Keyshawn at his best was better than Wayne Corbett at his
best.
Okay,
but that's not what the Mount Rushmore is.
Kyle,
well, no, but I thought the idea was you were taking the peak version of the guy on the Jets. The best version of Keyshawn on the Jets was better than the best version of Wayne Corbett.
Yeah, that's kind of what this game was about. That's what I interpreted it as, unless you had a different idea.
Yeah, no, that's... Mount Rushmore.
Okay, then we're all...
No, yeah, we're all... Scott and I are on the same page here, I feel like.
What do you guys not understand about Mount Rushmore?
Well, because we changed it from Mount Rushmore because, Kyle, you wanted to do this fantasy draft thing. You can't have a Mount Rushmore of the best receiver and then the 5th best receiver and then, you know what I'm talking about? Like, we're just building our lineups here. Using 4. I mean,
I think you could take the best guys too, but I'm just saying that if you're asking me who had a better peak as a Jet, Corbett or Keyshawn, I think Corbett had a better Jet career, but Keyshawn was better at his best for the Jets, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was saying let's just choose them off their peak, because then you ignore, if you have a guy who is an all-time great receiver for you, and then the last 2 years he was, kind of petered out. I'm saying you're just saying you want the guy that you're getting.
If that was the case, though, why wasn't Brandon Marshall the first pick?
Because Brandon Marshall is
at his peak with the Jets was our best receiver.
Yeah, but that was only. Yeah, I don't know.
Argument, but I don't know.
There we go. Yeah. See?
Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, I'm gonna go. The next guy that I'll pick. There have been some pretty good receivers throughout Jet history, and I've kind of been debating this, and we'll see where this comes back to. By the way, the quick thing with Tune, you could use him inside or outside, so he would fit in any lineup. And so if you had taken him, it wouldn't have been a bad fit either. I think I'm going to take Lavernius Coles here, and the reason is I think he works well with Wesley here because Wesley is an outside speed burner. And not that Lavernius is slow, he was fast, but he was so tough, and he was such a great, he in a way, he did a lot of what Wayne Corbett did as far as getting the tough yards and being able to lay out and stuff. So I think Lavernius at his best with the Jets, which you would say was right before he ended up getting dealt to the Redskins before he would come back a couple of years later. I think he would be a perfect fit with Wesley, and I think he's probably the next guy on this list after the guys that you all drafted.
All right, so you have the next pick also.
Okay, so now that I have Wesley Walker, I have Lavernius Coles, I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path here. There are some guys I could take, and I'm sure one of you guys is probably going to take somebody that I'm thinking of right now, but I'll go with Rob Moore, who should have a nice place in Ben's heart as a Syracuse guy. Rob Moore doesn't really get talked about much in terms of Jets history, but again, here's a guy very Keyshawn Johnson-like, very good hands, 6'4", did a lot of the dirty work, and I think that if you put him with Wesley, who's a burner, and Lavernius, who could really move the chains and open things up that way, you have Rob Moore, the big, giant possession receiver. I think that's a pretty good trio.
All right, so I currently have Don Maynard, Al Toon.
You use a slot guy, and there's a guy staring you right in the face.
A slot guy?
I was going to mention him, but I didn't want to say it in case one of you guys was going to pick him.
Well, there's a slot guy, and I guess, I'm assuming in that situation you're saying, I guess Toon's your 1 or 2, I guess, and then Maynard's
I'm just building the back.
All right, fine, you're building the way you are. But there's 2 guys here that I think that are good picks here.
Yeah.
There's one in particular that I think it would be the best pick, but we'll see.
Since I'm just going all-time Jets, the guys who have had the biggest impacts on this franchise, because I don't think Don Maynard's even the top 10 most talented wide receiver out of the guys we've had, talent-wise. I think that's fair to say.
No, but he's the most productive, and I mean, he has the best season.
Productive-wise.
But I said that point after you picked him, you always
and...
have to wonder how would he fare in today's NFL. I mean, is his route running on par with Antonio Brown's?
No,
probably not.
But that, again, for reasons we already talked about with genetics and advancement and all that stuff, it's not really fair to compare that way.
Yeah, they're completely different eras. So I'm saying you get your that was the reason I said you get your peak guy at the start initially, was just because. Yeah, I mean, there's huge era discrepancies. You take a guy in 2018 versus a guy in 1976, you know.
All right, I have my pick. I'm just waiting for the commissioner to shut up. I'm going to go with sorry, Ben. I'm going to go with friend of the podcast, Antonio Holmes, as my third pick.
Okay.
Interesting. I was considering him too. A lot of Jets fans don't love him as much as I mean, we had him on the show last year. I thought he was a pretty good guest.
He was actually that's like our underrated interview that not a lot of people talk about. I
think that's our most. If
Kelvin Beachum.
If somebody asks, like, what's a player you've had on the show, I always go Antonio Holmes. Most people know him because he was a Super Bowl MVP. But yeah, he was a really great guest. I was considering.
He was clutch for us, like throughout our solid runs in the 2010s too.
Yeah. So here are my last. Wait, who do I have? I have two guys right. I have Corbett and Keyshawn. So these are my last two picks then.
You went back to back.
Okay, well, I guess one of them. There's a few guys I'm considering here. I could make a somewhat surprising pick here, and I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to go Robbie Anderson. And,
I knew that was coming.
And I know that to Scott. I mean, I don't know how Scott reacts into this, but I'm just taking. There's not many guys in New York Jets history that I've just seen that can consistently get behind a secondary. They just have his speed. Mm-hmm. Yes, does Robbie Anderson have issues? Sure. But part of the reason I take him is because I know I have another pick right now as well. I get one of the most talented receivers. You know, whether or not he's a one-trick pony or not, even if let's say I'm building as my roster, even if he's my fourth string, I have a guy who I can bring in and who can consistently get behind safeties, who can go on deep balls, who can actually and then use that and parlay it into comeback routes because secondaries are so scared of him running by. He's a modern-day NFL wide receiver. I'm very excited for him in real life, and for my team, I'll take him. As far as my last pick, I'll probably just go with them. I mean, I was going to take Santonio. That was my other pick. I'm looking at Brandon Marshall as well, and this isn't my pick. I'm looking at him just because, if we're doing peak season, I mean, he did have the best, one of the best seasons. So if we're just purely going off that, I'd probably take him. But I'll go switch it a little bit. I already got Keyshawn, kind of a similar wide receiver. So I'm going to take Jericho Cotchery to kind of round out my four, which puts me he gives me kind of another slot guy, but a little more different than Wayne Corbett. I like him. Lavernius Coles was the guy I was hoping to get in this spot because then I could have Lavernius and Robbie. But I think I got four kind of pretty different guys. Obviously, the biggest similarity between Jericho and Wayne. But, I'm pretty excited between Keyshawn, Jericho, Wayne, and Robbie. All right, I want to get Scott's thought on there we go. Scott's thoughts. That's a new.
On Jericho and Robbie. Yeah,
well,
I mean,
just my wide receiver lineup as a whole.
Yeah,
you're a history buff, Scott. Come on.
Yeah, well, remind me exactly the four guys that you have now. You have Robbie. You have Jericho Cotchery.
I have Keyshawn and Wayne Corbett.
Keyshawn. Hey, listen, you can't go wrong with those guys. I mean, the one thing you needed if you were building it as a core is that you needed that guy with the speed. I think we'll see how. Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Is why you picked Robbie Anderson.
Wayne Corbett, deceptively fast.
No, Corbett. Listen, Corbett is a lot faster than people think, but he's not burning. No, he actually is a lot faster than people think. He has football speed, but he wasn't a guy that was going to beat guys down the field. But you got the big possession receiver in Keyshawn. You got the guy that's going to get you the yards over the middle with Corbett, and also with Jericho Cotchery too, for that matter. And then you got the speed demon with Robbie Anderson. To answer what you were saying before, though, Ben, the only and I said this too when I was watching Robbie last year. We'll see how he holds up, if he keeps this up, and if he gets better and whatever. But the last guy that I really remember the Jets having that, well, actually I don't want to say it because I might actually pick him last, but
I think I know who you're talking about because I thought about him as well, but I was like, I'll go with the guy I know better.
But let's just say the gold standard of Jets speed receivers is the guy that I picked first, Wesley Walker, and any guy that the Jets have that is going to try and be a pure speed demon like a Robbie Anderson, that's the ghost that they're chasing. So if he could be anywhere near as good as Wesley was, then that would be good. But I think you got a nice mix of receivers then.
All right, sweet. All right. Kyle's turn.
Yeah, my last pick, and the only reason I didn't pick him earlier is because there was a loophole, because I was looking at a list on Ranker just to see, if I was forgetting anybody or missing anybody, and they said this guy only played for us for 1 year, and I was like, that can't be right. So I looked at it. He technically only played for the New York Jets of the NFL for 1 year.
I know who you're taking.
I'm taking George Sauer, wide receiver of New York Jets, who played for us for 6 years. 5 of them were in the AFL.
In the AFL. Yep.
Yeah. George Sauer is 10th all-time in receiving yards for us and has 28 touchdowns in his career. Very underrated guy. I'm passing up Brandon Marshall because 1 year wonder. We didn't even make the playoffs that year. He was great for 1 year, kind of sucked the next year. Guys like Eric Decker,
I'm surprised. I didn't. The other guy I considered taking was I thought you were going to take, but. Well, I guess we'll go to Scott.
It's probably who I'm going to take. I'm going to take Santana Moss.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, no, I don't think Santana Moss is a Jet. I consider him a Redskin.
He played with the Jets for a while.
He played with the Jets for quite a while. The reason I like Moss in this spot too is if we're doing it the way Ben was talking about, he not only gives me a speedy guy to go down the field and another option with Wesley, but he also gives me somebody that can do something in the return game. So I like that as a mix. Yeah. And he's a smaller speed guy. But that was the guy I was going to say was the last pure speed threat that I remember the Jets having that was of any significance was Santana Moss. And he did have, I do think he had better years with the Redskins, but I think he was productive with the Jets. He really broke out with the Redskins, though, a couple of Pro Bowl appearances, but I think he's a nice mixture with the other 3 guys. You could make an argument for Decker, but you know what it is for me? With guys like Decker and Marshall, they were here so briefly, and like you said, I think of them more as, it's kind of like when you talk about John Riggins as a running back, like, he was good with the Jets, but you just think of him as a Redskin. With Moss, I hear you, but Moss at least started with the Jets and had some pretty productive years here. And so picking him as your 4th pick in a 12 wide receiver draft is one thing. But, I don't know, man. I felt weird about the idea of taking Decker and Marshall for that reason. I don't know if I should have, but that's kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, and so, Scott, going back to this is my debate. It was between Santana Moss and Jericho Cotchery. Who would you have taken? And even if you throw in Robbie Anderson. Even if you throw in Robbie Anderson, because I guess you can say more speed, out of those 3, and you have to remember, you're taking the guy at his peak on the Jets. That was so, you're not getting Santana Moss Redskins, you're getting Robbie Anderson last year, you're getting Santana Moss in whatever you deem his best form is, you're getting Jericho Cotchery in whatever form, you deem is his best, and that season is probably 2008 maybe, 2009, I don't know. So out of those 3, that was the decision I was faced with. I chose 2. Do you agree with my choices of going Jericho Cotchery and Robbie Anderson, or do you think that Santana Moss would have filled in better for one of those guys?
I think I probably would have taken Moss over Anderson. Part of it is because we don't really know what you're going to get out of Anderson yet. It's kind of a risky proposition at the moment. But I can't really kill you over it. I'd take Moss, but as far as Cotchery, look, I think Cotchery was definitely a better receiver at his peak on the Jets than Moss was. I think Moss at his best as an NFL player was better than Cotchery, but those are 2 different things. And so I think in the context of the game that we're playing, Cotchery's a better pick.
All right, I like it. And then when you start talking about Speed Demon, Santana Moss eventually popped in my head. For a second, I thought you were talking about Johnny Lamb Jones because he was a
no. He
was not a great. Well, because you were talking about the only guy I can remember who was just that fast. And I was like, is he just gonna just take the fastest guy, put him at 4th, and it's funny with Johnny Lamb Jones because, as you know, I've talked to a lot of the old-time players, and like Wesley Walker told me, he's like, if I would have been a wide receiver coach, I would have gotten that kid to be an all-pro because, like you just alluded to, Ben, he was insanely fast, but unfortunately he just couldn't catch the ball. So it's kind of like if you ever saw the movie Little Giants, the dude in the movie, the little kid who can't catch the ball, so just to picture toilet paper when he's catching the ball or whatever. It's kind of like that with him where he just couldn't catch the ball, but he was so fast. So if you could have just found the way to teach him how to
corral the ball, God only knows. But he was it's funny, a lot of people refer to him as one of the greatest busts in the history of the franchise, and in one way he was, but nobody will ever touch Vernon Gholston in the bust category because at least Slam Jones had his moments.
Yeah, but then you could also, I mean, I guess Vernon Gholston goes up there, but then you look at, okay, an outside linebacker taking 6 overall is bad, but then you look at, okay, how about a quarterback we thought, I guess it's a second-round pick versus a 6 overall, but then...
No, you can't compare, Ben. You're talking about Hackenberg?
Yeah, but a quarterback is more valuable, and he's a guy we thought was going... He never played it down. I mean,
nobody ever thought that. Nobody.
Yeah, but you also have to... Here's the difference.
You take him in the second round. McCagnon clearly thought he was going to be our future. That's why you take him in the second round.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you could make the argument. I think Vernon Gholston is a horrific bust, and what's going to help him out is that he's a 6 overall pick, and he's a first-round pick. But you're looking, okay, outside linebacker taking top 10, or quarterback taking top 40, who didn't even play a snap.
Here's why. First of all, Gholston never registered a single sack the whole time he was here. Second of all, and this is the key point, barely ever. He didn't even play that much. I mean, here's the thing, too, with Gholston that you have to keep in mind, and you just said it. There's a big difference between picking a quarterback in the middle of round 2 and picking somebody at number 6 overall. That's a gigantic difference. And as far as McCagnon's thought process, and I actually got into this with, on Play Like a Jet when we've been doing the series on the road to Sam Darnold with Albert Breer.
I plugged that earlier in the show. You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. That's why I love both of you.
I believe in the brand, Scott. I believe in promoting everybody.
That's what it's all about, man. We promote each other. All the rising tide lifts all boats. But what he said, what Albert Breer said at the time, the thought process at the time was they liked Hackenberg. They weren't convinced that he was necessarily going to be the savior, but the idea was they thought that maybe they could do something with him with Jeremy Bates, and that if they drafted him, that perhaps, with Daly and then later Jeremy Bates, but if they drafted him and they missed in the second round, you know what, they could still come back and get somebody a year or two later. It wasn't like they were using, a top 10 pick or something like that. So it was kind of more of a, let's take a chance on the guy. I agree he was a horrific bust, but you can't compare a guy picked it midway through the second round to a guy who picked 6th overall. It's just, you can't.
By the way, you're getting us Albert Breer's contact info, right?
Obviously not.
Let's talk off the air about that. But let's just say I had to go.
Differentiate some of our. I mean, we've had guests that Scott hasn't had on. I mean, Kyle, geez.
Okay, but Albert
Breer's
pretty big time.
Let's just say that Albert Breer specifically said, I'd be happy to appear on any TOJ podcast except the Jet Take because I'm tired of Kyle Fahey and his double entendres.
He was probably the guy who wrote that 1-star review, honestly.
Oh.
Yeah, I think he was, actually.
God, did you read those?
I sent it to Scott. It was funny. We have one really bad review. And honestly, it made me laugh, but it was also kind of
Wait, he gave us a 1-star, too?
Yeah.
That bastard.
The thing I don't understand is, how motivated do you have to be to leave a bad review? Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I'd rather have a guy
such a bad taste in that guy's mouth to where he literally steamed over.
That's something you should be proud of.
Well,
I'm fine with people giving constructive criticism of their reviews. I don't need to be all just bowing down or BSing.
No, there's nothing wrong with someone leaving a bad review.
Leave a review. Go to our iTunes right now. If you're listening to the show, go to our iTunes, leave a review.
Leave us a review.
If you think we deserve a 1-star, give us a 1-star. Write us why. If you think we deserve a 3 or 4 or 5, write us why. I'd rather have that than everybody just go, oh, this show's amazing.
Ed Reed was a 2-star coming out of high school. So
we're
by the
4.5 right now. We're still doing okay.
Should get a 5-star review because Jim Cobern is awesome. I just want to throw that out there.
Scott,
he's terrific.
You know how to write a review, right?
We got off to a rough start on just because the way I introduced him before the show, I kind of cut him off, and But I think he was terrific, and he can handle Kyle, and anybody can do that. For sure.
Ben, you can handle me whenever.
Okay. Well, you know I love Jim. I had him on that quarterback series that I did, and I think if you listen to Jim and you read his work, and anybody that has the ability to go to their computer and go to Amazon.com and order his work. It's definitely worth your while. He's just a really smart guy, and I wish more people, not just Jet fans, but just football fans in general, would pay attention to the work that guys like Jim and Josh Hermsmeyer, guys like him. He's the air yards guy, you know, which has become, I think they call it Pacer, which has become a stat that's been very popular with football, I guess, nerds like myself and people like that. But I think that people should really start paying attention to their work because, you know, when you looked at the stuff that he was doing with the quarterbacks as far as the data and analytics, and I mean, look, we'll see if Josh Allen ends up being a huge outlier, fine, but that data was screaming, do not draft Josh Allen. And I guess the Buffalo Bills don't read the work of our friend Mr. Cobern, but they really should.
As long as they leave police reports, it's fine.
Well,
Ben.
listen, Kyle,
Sorry.
all I know is he rolled with your wife and girlfriend scale question, so there you go.
I'm interested to know how he's going to be able to rank them, the girlfriends, without getting in trouble. Because I can already see that being a problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Jim's a talented guy. Let's see how he does it.
He is. If he's going to have to start with a memoir about. Never mind. You know what? Never mind. I was about to get in trouble.
Oh, boys.
I was letting you two talk for a bit, and we'll see where the show went.
Yeah. See, Ben, when you just let me talk, I almost get me too'd. It comes very close sometimes.
Oh boy, Jesus. Okay,
All right.
Scott, I guess that's where we'll end it. We had a fun little show there at the end, talking.
Ben, do you want me to do the music?
Yeah.
Hashtag me too, Kyle Fahey.
Scott, it is time for the segment you're most known for. Honestly, you're not known as a podcaster. You're not known as a writer on TOJ. You're not even known as a contributor. You're known as the master. I don't even want to say that. That just sounds weird.
Wow.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
I fixed it.
He's not known as a human being.
Kyle's got it in the background.
No,
Scott, do what you do best. Honestly,
Wait, that was wrong. I gotta find
this
it.
is your skill in life.
Yeah.
Everybody's given one gift. LeBron James was
called?
gifted to play basketball. You were gifted to plug. Scott, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Ben. So my way to
Kyle,
the music
are
here?
you kidding me, buddy? Get the music.
What's the name of it? I forgot the name of it.
Oh, my God. I'll just do it. Actually, no. Just look up NFL highlight music.
Highlight.
Click the first one. It's
Absolutely.
NFL Primetime Song 1. It's Scott's theme song. Come on. Scott, just
Don't blast it too loud in my ear either, Kyle.
Here it is.
There you go. Okay. So, we've got a lot. Can we bring that down a little bit?
Shut up.
I can't hear anything.
Kyle, down.
I think Kyle's trying to drown me out, actually. It's his plan. So anyway, on Turn on the Jets Digital this week, we've got a lot of fun stuff. And by the way, real quickly, I was on with Mr. Paul Eston, who, Ben, you should get to know because you're going up to Syracuse, and he does Drive Time Sports up there. He's got a podcast called The Jet Zone, so I was on with him today, so that was a lot of fun. Also was on with Mike Lindsley, who does the ML Sports Splatter. You can check that out as well. But on POJ Digital this week, we have got a brand new episode of the Turn on the Jets podcast coming in the morning, and that is going to be with Joe Caparoso and Michael Salfino. They're going to be talking about Sam Darnold. Will he start right away? Should he start right away? They'll have all the details on that. Michael Manning has got another very quick preview edition of Know Your Foe, the first one where he had Mike Lindsley on to talk Buffalo Bills. Did really, really well. I was pleased to see that. And so this is just going to be a quick 7 or 8 minutes of little factoids about the first half of the Jets schedule, but the actual show will debut in August, right before the first preseason game. We've also got the TOJ Film Room with Joe Blewett. That is kicking off, I believe, tomorrow at some point in the late afternoon. If not, it'll be early in the morning on Friday, but I believe he's got Mark Schofield on, and they're going to do a comprehensive film study review of all 3 of the Jets quarterbacks going into camp. So it'll be McCown, Darnold, and Bridgewater. Mark Schofield, Joe Blewett. What else do you really need to know about that, right? And then on Play Like a Jet on Friday, brand new episode, part 3 of our series with Albert Breer that we talked about before from SI and MMQB. We're going to get into the road to Sam Darnold as we continue along on the quest that the Jets went on to finally find, hopefully, their franchise quarterback. A lot more details coming, including some of the experiences that Mike McCagnon had scouting Mr. Darnold in the 2017 season. There's a little scrapbook he started and everything. But it wasn't just Darnold. He was having a look at all the top quarterback prospects, so we'll go through that. We talked a little bit about some of the things that led up to the 2018 season before. We talked about, the 2017 season. We talked about how the Jets didn't really want a quarterback out of the 2017 draft, about what they thought about Hackenberg and Teddy, so on and so forth. So that comes up part 3 on Friday. I will also announce the identity of the New York Airwaves legend who is going to be joining the Turn on the Jets digital network lineup. That'll be Friday on Play Like a Jet. So if you're curious about it, if you needed another reason to tune in on Friday, there you go. And then to cap it all off, we've got Dan Essian, and he is going to be doing Buck the Trend on Saturday, and he's going to be discussing
different with a B, folks, with a B.
he's
I'm
going to
pausing
be
the music. I was so concerned. I was like, did he really just say that?
No. Buck the Trend. It's going to be, not that it matters, we don't have an FCC, boys, but yeah, no, he's going to be talking about schemes and different coaches, players, general managers, and so forth who help change the game. Also, quick thing to note, we've got another brand new podcast that will be starting at the end of, or toward the end of the month, I believe, July 24th. Your buddy who you called super sexy today, Kyle, Dalton Astario.
He is.
And the guy that you referred to as the...
Yeah.
And the man that you referred to as the legend of Twitter, Paulie Brzez. The two of them are going to be doing What's Your Point?
That's accurate.
I will be the moderator of it. We're going to have a special guest judge every week. It's going to be a debate format. So what will happen is you'll have 4 rounds, kind of like 4 quarters. If somebody wins in the regulation, then they win for the week. They tally the points. We may have to go to overtime, whatever. And then at the end of the season, we'll tally it up and see who has the most points. And we'll probably do something where the winner gets to make the loser do something embarrassing. The first judge of the first episode, how else could we kick it off than with the boss, Joe Caparoso? So he'll be the guest judge on the first episode. And then we've got some other fun names lined up for future episodes after that. So there you go, boys. That is the TOJ digital lineup. Don't forget to check us out at turnonthejets.com. Subscribe to all the podcasts on iTunes and anywhere else. Also, feel free to leave us a review. In fact, we encourage it, even a 1-star review, like Ben mentioned before. And, of course, make sure that you follow us on Instagram at turnonthejets_IG. We're at like 950 followers. Let's get that to 1,000, please.
All right.
All right.
You could slow it down. You didn't have to turn it off abruptly. You could have turned it down and had a nice fade. But we don't have a mixer here because we're very low budget here at the Jet Take.
We do.
Scott Mason, it was great having you on, man. Looking forward to doing maybe another positional draft as we get into the closing days before training camp. I believe we have 2 more weeks, so 2 more episodes around there until we have some content again to talk about. Scott Mason, thank you so much for coming on, man. Looking forward to talking to you next week.
Thanks, boys. Always a pleasure. And Kyle, remember, Brent Musburger.
Brent Musburger. All right, I got it.
All right. Fahey, you have 2 or 3 minutes. We were going to do what did you want to do, a Mount Rushmore of the songs on Scorpion, Drake's newest album?
Yeah.
So what should we call a segment? Because we're going to have a segment at the end of all the callers, just 2 minutes, 3 minutes, really quickly talking about something not related to the Jets at all. It could be sports, it could be pop culture. It's got to be something related to Fahey. What are we saying? Are we saying... we're going to get back to that.
Yeah. I'm glad we both sat in awkward silence because it would have sucked.
I was going through what rhymes with Fahey, baby, maybe. I don't know. I'm still thinking.
I have some ones that I can't say on the air.
No, don't say that.
Yeah.
It's gonna come to me. There'll be something that's like creative, but
on you.
It'll be like tomorrow, and it'll be like, oh, boom, Fahey's blanks, and then I'll be like, well, we shouldn't call that. All right, now let's
we're going with that.
Blanks.
We're going with that.
All right, Fahey's blanks. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
You can handle the segment. This is you, buddy.
Yeah. So just pop culture for this week. We'll end it with Mount Rushmore of songs off Scorpion, which is overall a really good album. Justin Bieber got engaged. Thoughts on that, Ben?
Doesn't even follow her on Instagram. And
wow.
He shattered millions of 12-year-old girls' hearts with one ring, and it was honestly kind of surprising.
I see what you did there. Yeah.
Did you see the holding up a People magazine, and on it was like why Selena and Justin will never get married or something like that? Like,
yeah, and she was holding it up. Yeah, that was pretty funny. The ladies screaming in Sears over getting a refund. Did you watch that video?
Did not see that.
All-time internet video. Just the epitome of white trash in America. Grandmother, I'm assuming mother, and then daughter holding her daughter. I'm assuming it was a daughter.
We call it Spin Zone.
No.
Well, that was your catchphrase for a bit. Like Spin Zone, they listened to the show, and now they were the people who gave us the 1-star review. Okay, sorry. Anyways, let's get to this Drake Scorpion album, buddy. I know you're trying to do a Barstool rundown right here, but
yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do it. We're gonna have picks. So
no, we're not doing this. Do it. Just give me your top 4 songs in the album, buddy.
Okay, you have to give me your top 4 too.
Fine. You want to do picks? We got to do it faster. We're not going to analyze this. We have like a minute left on this, buddy. Okay, let's go. You can have first pick since you're more into it.
Okay. God's Plan.
Okay. Nice for what? I'll take it.
Oh, wow. In My Feelings.
Nonstop.
Really? Nonstop? Wow.
Nonstop's a good song. You got to listen to it though.
Third pick. Ooh. Emotionless.
Damn it! That was my freaking pick. Damn it. I should have just taken Emotionless. I thought you were going to take Nonstop. I'll go with Summer Games. I like it. Puts me in my feels.
See, I think that's the worst song in the album.
Really? You listen to that, bro?
Oh, I almost Finesse. Fourth pick.
8 out of 10.
Over Talk Up or Sanders Rose? And Mob Ties.
Yeah, I thought about the other one was the other one? Let me find it. There was another one I like.
March 14th is good too, but I don't want to trigger anything for you.
All right, Kyle. I think that's the 4 I'd go with. No, my top 4 on the album are probably. I'm actually not a huge God's Plan fan, but it's probably just because it was overplayed.
As a hype song? As a song?
It's good. I think it was just overplayed as much, and I don't think many other rappers could get. Well, did you hear the thing about his son's middle name is Mabed, so it's like talking about his son?
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is,
his son's middle name is Mabed, and he knew when he made the song, so
I don't think he did.
Yeah, the son was born in what, October?
So it's March.
He found out he had a son March 14th.
That's when he found out. Is that what that song?
That's what it's about.
Okay, and the kid was born in October.
I believe so. So then she got pregnant in February or whatever. So the kid's been around for almost a year now. I feel like he probably knew when he made the song. Because the song released in what, beginning of the year? Like February?
God's Plan?
Yeah.
That came out in Scary Hours. And Scary Hours was dropped on January 20th.
Yeah, so he knew. Yeah, I think he did. Okay, anyways. I'm going Emotionless. Nice for What? What was the other one I really like?
I would play these, but I feel like we'll definitely get copyrighted.
I'll go 8 out of 10, and part of me wants to go. I'll go God's Plan. God's Plan. Yeah, God's Plan. It was between In My Feelings and God's Plan. I like In My Feelings, but I think it's made by the chorus. I think outside of that, the rap's okay. He just keeps going to the same. I don't know, same like snare kind of bass.
Okay, if we're going like songs, I personally love. Emotionless is probably the best on the album.
Yeah, I think it's the best song. That was. But I didn't think you were gonna like it because I told you 2 weeks ago I liked it and you didn't list it in your top 4. I don't believe. So I was like, I can get it with the second pick.
Well, I really don't like Summer Games or Peak, and I know you mentioned some. Yeah, Peak
I like
horrible.
Summer Games a little bit. I like it just because it was a bit different of a sound. I don't listen to it as much as I did when it first came out, but I like the difference of sound.
Anyways, I don't like Don't Matter to Me. I don't like that song. with Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I don't either, but even if he was to cut the album down to like 10 songs, I'd still keep it because I think it's cool that he sampled Michael Jackson. All right, back to Jets talk. Kyle, any last words here? Thank you so much for listening to the show. But Kyle, you have anything, last things you'd like to say before you do the plug? Get out of here. Do you have your weird thing you say it after the end of the recording? Or?
Well, we say that at the end of the soundbite.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying, do you have anything like of substance you'd like to add before you say inevitably Brett Musburger or something about this album?
No, not really.
All right. Well, you can listen to our show anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search The Jet Take. You can also follow us on Twitter at The Jet Take. Engage with us. We love talking Jets football. We try to do a question of the day. Just tweet Jet stuff. Obviously, content's at an all-time low right now, but it's going to be ramping up, and we're very excited about it. And also, you can write us a review on iTunes. Please do. Just give us your honest thoughts on the show. If you don't like it, what parts do you not like? What parts do you like? Just try to be constructive. We're always trying to make the show better.
Reed was a 2-star out of high school.
Ed Reed was. We're 4.5 still. We only have one really negative review, so it's just it was But
check out the other.
We're not. Kyle might be a softie, but I can take it. I want to hear your honest.
I'm always hard.
Okay, Jesus Christ. I don't even know how to continue the show, honestly. So just honestly write a review. If you think Kyle's inappropriate jokes are a negative down point, please point that out. If you think my incessant annoyance, I guess, is
what was that word?
Part, maybe conceited, my arrogant attitude. I don't know. Whatever you want to insult.
I can't believe I called you an arrogant asshole in the middle of the show.
I did in the show. Well, because you're half kidding, you're half serious, but like the way you're saying it is you're kidding. But it's like for people who don't listen to the show, they think, wow, this kid just hates this guy, which you might, but it's all...
We're not sure.
When you say hate, you don't actually hate me. Like, we still talk, but like...
No, like, I feel like if somebody tried to fight you and I was there, like, I'd fight somebody for you. But also at the same time...
But I'd probably film it and put it on Twitter. So, like, at the same time...
Like, you would push it for me to... You were like, this is who I'm fighting in the boxing match. This kid couldn't even take a mugger. He's like, gonna fight me?
Damn. All right. Yeah, you'd probably help and then roast me about it later. All right, let's just get out there.
It's like then I had to jump in for you when you were about to die on the streets of Oregon.
All right. All right. Well, that will do it for our show. We hope everybody had a nice 4th of July break. We're coming back at you live next Wednesday. You can call into the show 515-739-1285. Enter the access code 261860 with the pound or hash sign. We're looking forward to it. 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Wednesday. Hoping for some more content in coming weeks as we get closer and closer to training camp, preseason, and inevitably the very exciting 2018 season. Have a nice week, everybody. We'll leave you with the best chant in the National Football League. See you next Wednesday. No, copyright.